Hello again, my little conscripts, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. Today's video is going to be a bit of a spicy meatball, because I'm just going to say it. Games Workshop should be worried. They should be really worried. Because whilst they have been resting on their laurels, others have been stepping up in a big way. I don't mean to alarm you, but I have been spending some time recently building and painting the new plastic kits for Konflikt 47, the upcoming game from Warlord Games. And these model kits, these sprues, are awesome. Really, really good. And not only do I think, in many ways, they beat Games Workshop kits, but they also raise some very difficult and uncomfortable questions for GW around their own sprues and model kits. And so, without further ado, let's mount up, roll out, and dive right into this thing.
Hi Joe! Did you know that the Mordian Glory channel is now officially sponsored by Warlord Games? Warlord Games is the company behind the outstanding World War II miniatures game, Bolt Action. And with Bolt Action 3rd edition, now is the time to pick up some models and do your part for king and country.
Bring up the pit!
So what are you waiting for, you fool? Click on the affiliate link down below, buy yourself some Bolt Action today and support the channel.
First things first, I want to say a big thank you to Warlord Games for sending me some free models of the new Konflikt 47 stuff. They sent me a couple of sprues of the Stahltruppen and also a full kit for the Vogelspinne. I don't know if you meant to say Spinne, but I like saying it like that. They also sent me a full kit for the Linebacker mech and also 2 sprues of the new US Fireflies. However, I do want to make one thing abundantly clear. This video is not sponsored by Warlord Games. They've not paid me to review it in any way, shape, or form. They sent me the free models and they said, tell us what you think and be honest about it. And that is exactly what I am going to do. I'm going to talk about the new kits and I'm going to cover the positives and the negatives about them, and we're going to be totally above board because not only are we going to be having a little chat about the new kits from Warlord Games, but like I said in the intro, we're also going to be talking a bit about Games Workshop and why I think these kits should make them very worried. So, with all of that said, let's talk about these new models and my experience building and painting them. First up, we have the Stahltruppen, the new, very chunky, power armored boys for the Axis. These are my favorites. I think that they are phenomenal models. Not only are they unbelievably easy to build, but they also look really intimidating on the tabletop as well. So these guys were the first plastic sci-fi models that I have built from Warlord Games. Everything else that's plastic that I've built from them has been for Bolt Action. And what immediately jumped out to me was how easy they were to build. I've been doing a lot of Warhammer 40k kits recently. Big shout out to Willaria, who sent me a whole bunch of 40k kits just for me to have fun with. He's just a member of the community and he was very, very generous. And I've been building everything from Kazakin through to Traitor Guardsman, loads of different bits. I've been building also some Arvis Lighters as part of the Lighter Corps, and I've been building some of the Solar Auxiliary tanks. And I've been really enjoying, building those kits, but they have been kind of exhausting. And so I opened up these new models from Warlord Games and I was sort of pre-thinking, in my mind, okay, I'm going to have to, really follow the instructions and everything, because that's what you have to do with 40k kits. And I realized that there were no instructions. And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to build these instructions? And then I actually looked at the sprues and went, these are so easy. I don't need instructions for these. These are like Bolt Action models, which you don't need instructions for either. And I kid you not, within 20 or 30 minutes, I had built every single Stahltruppen. That is 6 models, just built, no dramas whatsoever. I built guys with the double-barreled STG 44s. I built guys with the underarm machine guns, and I built one of the guys with the light anti-tank gun. And to be clear, this was my first time building this kit, and I did not need any instructions for the Style Trooper. And they were just so intuitive on how they went together and so easy. The legs are all in one part. None of this bollocks where you've got like the legs in like 4 different pieces. The body, 2 halves that just went together. The arms just went on the sides. Just so bloody easy. I cannot express it. And it was just a dream. I built them so quickly. Do you know what? I wanted more. I was like, wait, I've already built the 6, but now I want to build like another 6, another 12. It was just such a joy to put them together so quickly and so easily that it left me hungry for more. So they're easy to build, but what about the details? Well, I think there's a lot here. I've been saying for a while now that Warlord Games has been stepping up the quality of their models. I mean, they don't always get it right. Look at Sergei, the Katusha loader. But with things like the Winter Fallschirmjäger and the Rattenkrieg German veteran infantry, they have been near peer, if not peer to GW in terms of quality of kit. Little creases in the clothing, just details on the weapons, like where you can see the individual bolts and all the tiny little bits. They're very, very good. But often that doesn't come across, because when you look at a 40k model, it's just festooned with accoutrement, little skulls and all sorts of bits here and there. Whereas models for bot action obviously wouldn't have all that kind of stuff. They're trying to be more, well, much more realistic. But with the Style Trooper, and I'd also say for the Fireflies, but we'll get to those guys in a moment, these are sci-fi. So Warlord Games has a lot more freedom, a lot more scope to be able to go nuts and just add bits onto the models. And so you have a lot of extra little details here that I think really do step the model up. And when painting them, I really enjoyed the fact that because they were sci-fi, I could actually add a bit of pop to them. Another thing which I think can sometimes hold bolt action back. It's a beautiful game and it looks beautiful, especially the boards. But the models, if you paint them historically, are all in kind of drab colors. I found it so enjoyable to take my Style Trooper, paint them in sort of Feldgrau, field grey for like the armor and the uniforms, but then going around and like painting the power pack in copper, because I was like, well, it's a rift generator, it's going to need to conduct electricity or rift energy, make that out of copper. Put the plasmatic bolt glow on the back. Let's have a bit of fun with some of the weapons. Normally I paint my weapons in grim black, but I was like, you know what, screw it, let's make them a bit shinier, a bit bolder, a bit brighter. So I actually ended up painting them in some enchanted steel, so it was a much more sort of shiny and eye-catching. And so I really liked building the models. I really enjoyed painting them because the detail was there, but I also enjoyed painting them because I had a bit more freedom on how I could add those exciting colors in. Now, I've painted my guys to be in line with a lot of my German bot action stuff because I want to mix and match those armies, because you can use everything for bot action in Konflikt 47, literally everything. But I have seen some people who've been getting into Konflikt 47 fresh, and they've been painting their guys in all sorts of wacky colors. I saw a whole bunch of Soviets the other day painted in red, and they looked like they were straight out of Red Alert 2. It was amazing. So I really like with Konflikt 47 on the painting front, you can get a bit wild and creative with it. And I think that's going to be a really, really big draw to people coming in from other sci-fi games like 40k. Because you don't want to come into a game and be like, oh, can I paint all my US stuff like blue because I love Ultramarines for 40k, and so I go, no, this is bot action, you can't do that. If you come into Konflikt 47, then and someone says, and you say, oh, can I paint all my US stuff blue? You can be like, yeah, of course you can, go for it, no dramas. So I really like that from the painting front as well. However, I do have 2 small criticisms of the kit. I told you guys I would be honest with you. The first one is I think there could be better definition around the double STG barrels. There should be a bit of an indentation along the top and along the bottom at the moment to make it look like 2 separate barrels, because it's meant to be 2 STGs that are basically welded together. Instead, it's kind of flat along the top and the bottom, which makes it look like one oval, sort of oval barrel. So That could be better. And then there could be a little bit better detailing on the belt that they wear. But both those things are very minor. And I can say, as someone who's now painted a full squad of these guys, when you are looking at the models from 2 feet away, you do not notice that. And even when they're painted, you don't really notice it. It's just when you're kind of like looking at the model up close, you can see it. But other than that, fantastically easy to build, very, very detailed, really easy to paint, and loads of great painting opportunities. So we've covered the Style Trooper. Let's go over to the Americans for a bit and look at the Fireflies and the Linebacker. So I know there are going to be a lot of people who are very excited for the new Firefly models. And let me tell you, they are an incredibly fun model to build and paint. Warlord Games has included enough bodies and legs for you to build 6 of the Fireflies per sprue, and you get a lot of spare different parts, especially in the leg department, which means you can have them jumping around on all sorts of tactical rocks, or you can have them walking around on the ground. Some people like poses where they're jumping on rocks and stuff, but other people think that the tactical rock is a bit silly. Warlord Games has made accommodations, and so you can choose to have all of your guys more grounded, or you can have them all in action poses. It's kind of up to you, and of course you can mix between the two. Like with the Style Trooper, there is a lot of details on these models, and Warlord Games has taken the opportunity to embrace their creative side with the sci-fi elements. So we haven't just got your standard US troopers sort of jumping around. Instead, we've got the gas mask. Oh, the gas mask is so cool because they just kind of look like normal gas masks, but then some of them have got like mini like exhaust pipes coming off the side. It's meant to represent like an air filter or something, or mini like oxygen tank if they're at high altitude. It's so cool, and it just feels a little diesel punk, a little steampunk. It's very, very nice. And then you've also got the fact that they have got all sorts of different sort of harnesses on and stuff to represent all the extra straps, and all of these have got loads of belt buckles on them and stuff, so you can really get into the detail. You can just paint them as like a brown strap if you're like me and you're a bit of a lazy painter, but if someone really wanted to get in there, they could have each of the little belt buckles done and there would be no dramas whatsoever. They've also got knee pads on the guys as well. I'm just going to say these knee pads are way better than the ones on the Cadian, the new plastic Cadians for 40k. Those knee pads and shoulder pads, which are like sort of random circles sort of stuck on, they do look a little bit funny. These ones are on the models and they are clearly strapped on as well. There's little knots that you can see where the power troopers have sort of tightened them up. The knots are like different lengths and stuff to represent like different troopers, you know, tying them to different lengths, I mean different size legs and all sorts of stuff. It's just little details like that, do you know what I mean? So it's really, really cool, and the models have got loads of detail. They're not just your standard US infantryman. Warlord Games has gone above. And then you've also got, of course, the backpacks as well. And I, once again, took the opportunity to paint these backpacks in a more sci-fi-esque way. Normally in bolt action, I would paint all of my metals in grim black, but with these guys, I was like, you know what, let's break out the enchanted steel again. No dramas. So I painted them in steel to add that extra pop. And so building them was great, and painting them was fantastic. And I didn't think I'd like the tactical rocks. I'm just going to say I didn't think I'd like it, but after building a bunch of guys on the tactical rocks, I love the extra height and sort of just dynamic feeling that it adds to the models. Speaking of building them, it is worth mentioning that you do get a shitload of weapons with these guys. Everyone can have the new MX-1 Thompson submachine gun, or you can outfit them with flamethrowers, and you get BARs as well. I mean, it's crazy that the BAR is still going. I built one of my guys with one just because I thought, it's the bar, you gotta have the bar, right? And then you also get things like, you get the one-shot disposable rocket launchers. You've got everything that you could want. I do think the flamethrower is my favorite model though, because it's got a little like drop leg pouch for the flamethrower tank, and that is molded onto the gun, so you don't need to like build the guy the flamethrower and then try and like get the leg pouch to sort of line up with the, you know, the connect the tube. No messing around like that. The gun and the arm and the leg pouch are all one piece, and it just glues on, it just glues in very simply, and it looks really flush and seamless. It's very nice, and that flushness of parts was the same pretty much across all of the kits. I noticed it especially with the Style Troop, and every single piece went together perfectly. And I noticed it especially with the linebacker as well. However, once again, in the interest of complete transparency, I did have two small criticisms of the Firefly kit. Firstly, the arms went together perfectly, but it would have been helpful to have some instructions so I knew which arm went with which, because it was, I'd say, about 75% clear. No, often one weapon would be next to its arms, that was fine. But there were a few times, like with the BAR, where I was like, I've got the BAR here, and there's a hand molded on the, gripping the end of the BAR, but which arm goes with it? Because I've got a couple of choices here, and only one of them is going to fit. So I did have to sort of put a tiny dab of plastic glue on, put the arm on, and say, oh, does that one fit? No, okay, it must be the other one. Okay, yeah, perfect. So there was a little bit of trial and error with the Firefly kits, but I will say this, I will happily take a little bit of trial and error over the arm being in like 7 different pieces. And I think what the issue was that one arm would sometimes fit to 2 different weapons. And so it would be in a place that would make sense for one weapon, but then maybe not make sense for the other weapon. I think all of that will be completely cleared up with a little instruction leaflet, which I know Warlock Games often does include with their models. These were some early access models, so I didn't get that instruction leaflet. So I think they're still working on that bit. One other tiny criticism I had of the kit was one of these sets of legs was a little stumpy. Now, I suspect what's happened here is that they've had to make one of the bodies a little longer to accommodate the big repulsor backpack for the particular pose that it's in. Now, I was curious about these stumpy legs, so I did build the stumpy legs with the body, and once I built it and painted it, I couldn't tell the difference. So what I suspect is happening here is most of the waist on those legs is actually part of the body, because you've got like a slightly stumpy leg and a slightly elongated body. And when you put them together, the proportions work. But I definitely noticed it when I was clipping the parts out. I was like, what? little stumpy leg guy. So I thought I would make you guys aware of it, because I know some people are going to see them and go, what the hell are these legs? But when you actually build them put together, you can't see it at all. But that covers the infantry core. Let's get on to the big boy, and let's talk about the linebacker. So this is the new big plastic mech kit for Konflikt. In fact, it's the first plastic mech kit that they have ever produced for the game. That and the Vogelspinner. Until now, everything has been in resin and metal. Now, of course, this kit was very detailed and all the parts went together really easily, very flush. Everything positive that I've said about the Style Trooper and the Fireflies can apply to this kit as well. And I built the entire thing on stream, and it was a pleasure to build. But I don't just want to repeat myself, because you've heard me say that already a lot. The big thing with the linebacker, and honestly, this is the thing that has kind of motivated this entire video. And this is the thing which I think, even more so than the Style Trooper, even more so than the Fireflies, the big thing is the linebacker, and this is what should make GW worried. You see, I've been building a lot of Warhammer tanks and vehicles recently. Quick side note, I've done a big modernization project on my Mordian Vanguard, because I had lots of tanks for them, but they were all odds and ends that I picked up over the years. So I just sat down and in a month basically built half a dozen vehicles, probably more like a dozen vehicles. I built, painted them, and now I don't need to be dipping into my Steel Legion. So when I run my Mordians on Battle Report, everything will be in the same color scheme, which is well overdue. But I've been building a lot of 40k and 30k kits. And one thing that I find a little frustrating, that's an understatement, incredibly frustrating about modern Games Workshop kits, whether it's infantry or tanks, is the fact that you're constantly having to sprue hop. Nothing is ever just on one sprue. When you're building a section of the tank, or when you're building an infantryman, it really feels like you're having to hop from different sprues. And sometimes you're having to hop within the same sprue. So you have a sprue and there'll be a bit over here, but then on the other side of the sprue, there'll be the other bit that connects to it. So if those legs are in two parts, you'll have one bit over here and one bit over here. It's very frustrating. Sometimes they're next to each other, but it's very inconsistent. If you're building a vehicle, you'll have 3 or 4 different sprues, and parts will be spread out across all the sprues. But you have to go from this sprue to get half of the bit you're building, then go over to sprue number 3 to get the other half, and then you go to the next bit in the instructions, and that's on sprue number 2. You're constantly hopping around the sprues, and it does actually add a lot of time, and it gets a little frustrating and a little wearing if you have to do this over one vehicle. But you can imagine what I've been through over the last few months. Like, I do very much enjoy building Warhammer 40k kits, but in an intense building period like I've just been through, you really just feel this sprue hopping. It can be very, very frustrating. And if you're a new player who's coming into Warhammer 40k and you're building an army up, and a lot of new players will buy a lot in one go, then build it all up, it can be very difficult when you're constantly feeling like you're fighting the sprues to get the models that you want. But now we get to Konflikt. Now we get to the linebacker. And I was completely blown away. And I cannot express this enough. There were 3 sprues in the kit. I built everything from the first sprue, and then I moved on to the second sprue, where I built everything on the second sprue. And then I moved on to the third sprue and built everything from the third sprue. I didn't have to sprue hop once. It was bonkers. Everything I needed for the first stages of the instructions were on sprue 1. Then we got to the middle part of the instructions and everything I needed was on sprue 2. Then we got to the final part of the instructions and everything I needed was on sprue 3. I have never, ever seen that before in a Warhammer 40k kit. Everything just being in order but on the sprues. And the big thing as well is the sprues were very, very ergonomic. Not only was the kit as a whole very ergonomic with a natural, you do sprue 1, then sprue 2, then sprue 3, and by the time you finish sprue 3, you've got your full model. That alone is incredible and cannot be stressed enough how easy that made building this model. But not only that, but all the parts were grouped on the sprues. Looking at them, you can clearly see they're broken down into grids. So all the parts for the gun that you're working on are in this one grid. All the parts for the leg that you're working on is in one grid. There's not like half the parts here and then you have to go and get the toes, the little claw toes, the linebacker in another sprue and then come back. The sprues themselves were step 1, step 2, step 3, but every part within the sprues as well was then grouped to make it quite possibly the easiest vehicle I have ever had to build. It just flowed. It just flowed. And I got to the end of building this large linebacker mech, and I'd finished building this thing at like 5 in the morning. I stayed up late to do it as like I said to the guys, should we ever go building the linebacker? I know it's like 3 in the morning, but should we have a look, see what we can get done? So I got this thing built in a couple of hours on stream, and I couldn't stop myself. I wanted to go to the next bit, and despite the fact that it was 5 in the morning, despite the fact that I'd streamed for 8 hours by the time this was done, I wanted to build another one. I wasn't exhausted. I wasn't burnt out. I wasn't frustrated. I wanted to build another one. And this right here is why I think Games Workshop should be genuinely worried. Because quite frankly, these new Konflikt 47 kits show up GW. It makes them look bad. It's embarrassing. Warlord Games is a company a fraction of the size of Games Workshop. I don't mean any shade on Warlord. You guys know I love Warlord. They're a great company. But they are a fraction of the size. So how can a company like Warlord Games produce a kit that is, I would argue, peer to Games Workshop? The detail is there. And now you've got a kit which is phenomenally easy to build in comparison to anything Games Workshop has put out in the last 5 years. It's got the detail. It's easy to build. The sprues are well laid out and ergonomic. And all of this at a cheaper price point than Warhammer 40k. Konflikt 47 is more expensive than Bot Action. But Bot Action is almost unreasonably cheap. But it is significantly cheaper than Warhammer 40k. Konflikt 47 is. Those Style Trooping guys are your Terminators equivalent. For less than the price of 5 Terminators for Warhammer 40k, you get 9 of those new Style Trooping. So you're paying less and you're getting nearly double. Why are Games Workshop sprues so poorly laid out? Why are Games Workshop models in so many tiny little bits? You can't tell me it's to try and reduce mold lines, because we all know that GW kits are still riddled with mold lines. If anything, I think some of these Konflikt 47 kits have got better mold lines than GW ones. Which sounds crazy. They're still there. I'm not saying there's no mold lines. They're still there. But again, I have been building a lot of 40k and 30k models recently. And I am telling you, there are mold lines galore through those. I don't really care about them, but they're there. I would say there are less on these Konflikt 47 models. Even if you say they're equals pequals, okay, fine. That's still a mark against GW, because you're still getting models with loads of mold lines, and yet your kits are super fiddly to build. Your sprues are a nightmare to navigate. Just even if every part is on one sprue, which it never is, but even if it is, it's still a nightmare. They're not in clear grids. They're all laid out weirdly. GW sprues remind me of the first Eisenhorn book. It feels like looking at a Ceruthi tablet. And then you go over to Bolt Action and Konflikt 47 and you do sprue 1, then sprue 2, then sprue 3. I've never done that on a GW sprue. Just go from 1 to 2 to 3. I've never done that. And then everything in those sprues is in the right places as well. And it's... So why are GW sprues like this? Well, I have a theory. They're like this because it's good for GW. GW lays the sprues out the way that they can to make them as efficient as possible from a manufacturing point of view. This is my theory. I have no proof for this. This is all speculation. But I think they do it from a manufacturing point of view. So like, look, if we break the models down like this and we put it onto the sprues like this, then it will be more efficient for us to manufacture them, which means it will save us money on production. Which is great for GW, but it sucks ass for the consumer. It sucks ass for us, the people that are buying the models and building them and painting them. And then you go over to Warlord Games and it's like, you can just see that the sprues are not laid out because they're the most efficient layout to save Warlord Games pennies on each sprue. And you know, pennies do add up, so I'm not saying it's not a small saving that GW is making here. I understand. But Warlord Games has clearly gone efficiency second, ergonomics first. Because efficiency is what benefits them. But ergonomics is what benefits their customers. And I think this is why GW should be worried. Because you've got a company which is making products which can compete with theirs. It's in the sci-fi marketplace now. We're not just in historicals as well. And also, it's, you know, the sprues reflect the attitudes that each company has towards its consumers. Warlord Games is thinking consumer first. They're thinking, let's make these models as easy as possible to build. GW is there going, we want to make these models as cheap as possible for us to produce. And there's a world of difference between those two mindsets. There's a world of difference between producing a sprue in a way that is better for the company and producing a sprue in a way that is better for the consumer. So why does GW do this? Why do they produce the sprues they do? Because it saves them money and because we keep buying it. At the end of the day, if Games Workshop makes the sprues and they're kind of unergonomic and a bit horrible to build, and they're all these little bits, and we still buy them, then they've no incentive to not do it that way. And this is where I think Konflikt 47 could be very exciting. Because some of you may think that I hate Games Workshop and hate Warhammer 40k. I don't. I don't love Games Workshop. I don't really care for Games Workshop one way or another. They're a company and I buy their products. But I do love Warhammer 40k. But up until now, 40k has essentially acted in a monopoly. And so GW has been able to get away with a lot of stuff, hiking models up, having what I think is a 400% margin on what they produce and all this kind of stuff. They've been able to get away with some very, very anti-consumer practices because they're essentially in a monopoly. I don't know if legally they're in a monopoly. I don't want to be throwing any assertions around. I'm not an expert in this department in any way, shape or form. But you could definitely speculate that they are in a pseudo-monopoly. Because at the end of the day, as a consumer, where are you going to go? If you want to play a sci-fi game, which is at a skirmish level, it's not like a little squad-on-squad thing, and all the models are in plastic, where else are you going to go? There's only really Warhammer 40k out there. But this is where I think Konflikt 47 can be very interesting and exciting. Because it's a potential, we don't know yet, of course, chance to be a fine thing, but it's a potential market disruptor. In a way that I don't think Bolt Action has been. Because Bolt Action is historical. And for some people, it's like, historical's fine, but that's just not what they're interested in. Bolt Action could be the best game in the world, but if you're not interested in historicals, it's not going to grab you. But if you're interested in sci-fi, well, things are starting to get a bit different. Konflikt 47 is a game that you can now collect completely in plastic for a significant discount over a similar game like Warhammer 40k. It's in a bespoke universe. It's in a sandbox where you and your imagination are the only limitations, but there's established lore that you can get into, pages upon pages upon pages of established lore that you can get into, which they're constantly adding to. The models are easier to build than Warhammer 40k. The models are cheaper to build than Warhammer 40k. The game is a lot crunchier. The rules are intuitive, not abstract. The rules, you've got things like destructible terrain and all this kind of stuff in Konflikt. You don't have that in Warhammer 40k. It's a game that can scratch your sci-fi itch. It can scratch that flavor itch. And it's a game which has all the creative freedom that you want. It feels like it's got some potential. And the more that I personally look at the rules and look at the models, the more that I share the rules that I'm able to share with people and the models, the more I had people saying to me who were not that bothered about Konflikt, go, this thing's got some potential. This thing's more interesting than I first thought. And as crazy as it sounds, the best thing that could ever happen to GW and Warhammer 40k is they actually get some competition. Because we all know monopolies are bad. But competition encourages companies to do better. To not just do things for themselves, but it forces them to have to compete for the attention of the customers. And so the best thing that I think could happen to Warhammer 40k and GW is they get some competition, because Warlord Games and other companies out there are stepping up. And at some point, GW is going to have to step up as well. Well, at least that's what I think. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What do you think of Konflikt 47? What do you think of what you've seen of the new sprues and the new kits? And what do you think about Warhammer 40k and where those model kits are going? Are they particularly unergonomic? And do you have a great example of one that was a pain in the balls to build? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode.
Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and Patreons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Redfield, 32, Jurgens, Miasma, Try Again, Bragg, R.J., Scorpion, Bonbonvert, Lord Pryor, Nicholas Walsh, John Stubbs, Guardian, Varney, Sword, Fish Trombone, Picklock the Forged. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.